Hey guys, it's Nick back with another video, and today I'm going to be explaining how you can become better at PokeMMO PvP. So right off the bat, one of the first things that I think most people decided to just skip out on is like the type chart. I strongly recommend that you do learn the type matchups, like, not just knowing the basic water, grass, fire core. You need to learn more than that. You need to understand like that a lot with typings there's immunities, and like Ghost is immune to both normal and fighting. What else? Steel is immune to poison, which means you can't get poisoned at all, which is great. So there's a lot of things with that. And then after that, I would definitely say that learning abilities is another really big thing. So if we take Clefable is a decently bulky Pokemon. It has like okay defenses, okay HP, right? And this thing is very good even with these pretty mediocre stats, and that is largely because of its ability Unaware and Magic Guard as well. But if we focus on Unaware, Unaware ignores any stat changes. So if a Pokemon is setting up on you, you can just switch Clefable in and it will take the same amount of damage as it would take if the Pokemon had not set up. So it's very nice. That's why it is so used, especially in UU. That's just why it gets a lot of action in that tier. Now another easy one to understand is actually Levitate. Hydreigon is a Pokemon that does have Levitate. It is Dark and Dragon. Of course, it doesn't have that flying type, so how else would it ignore things on the ground? But Levitate allows you to be immune to ground type moves, spikes, and Arena Trap, which is really useful in a lot of cases. So you aren't trapped by, like, for example, Doug Trio, which has Arena Trap, which can be very annoying. It also does not take damage from hazards, except, like Stealth Rocks, but it doesn't get hurt by spikes or toxic spikes. And being immune to ground type moves, like Earthquake, that's really useful. So not only are abilities extremely useful to understand, but there is also items in the game. So for example, if we look at these two Pokemon, Jellicent is generally a very bulky, stally mon. You generally would run like Recover, maybe Burn, to half the damage of those physical attacking moves, and you want to make sure it is as bulky as possible. Now, a really good item to run with Jellicent is Leftovers, because you will get passive recovery for health-wise, and not only are you healing with recovery, getting that 50%, but you also get about an extra 6% with the Leftovers, which is very nice. Every turn you get an extra 6.25%. Now, another example would be a Crocodile. So looking at its ability, it's Moxie, and which means after you knock out a Pokemon, you get a boost in your physical attack stat, which is very useful. Now, this thing is very good, but Crocodile tends to not struggle, but it just does not have the best speed tier. So it's a base 92 speed, which isn't terrible. It's not the best though. So to basically counter that, you would give it a Choice Scarf, which boosts its speed by 1.5%, which makes it outrun pretty much everything unless another Pokemon has Scarf or like Speed Boost as its ability. You are, however, locked into the use of one move, but it can be very useful to get the edge on outspeeding certain other mons. So on top of items, you also want to understand moves. So let's look at our Golem here. We have Earthquake, Stealth Rock, Sucker Punch, and Stone Edge. You want to understand like how much damage a move can do if it gets stabbed, which is like, if a Pokemon has the same type move that it is. So Earthquake and Stone Edge get stabbed because Golem is a rock and ground type. So you want to look at like its accuracy and its power, and that'll be really useful to understand. Like Stone Edge has an annoying accuracy of 80%, so there's that 20% chance that you could miss, but it also has a super high critical hit ratio, which is very useful. Another thing with moves is like there's priority with moves. So Fake Out, Sucker Punch, these have priority. Follow Me has priority. Sucker Punch will basically, even though this guy is very slow, he gets to move first almost every time with Sucker Punch. Another move that you would like to understand is Stealth Rocks. Stealth Rocks you can set up on the opposing opponent's side, and every time a Pokemon switches in, they will take some damage. Now, there's certain types that are affected more by these, that being like flying, everything that is weak to rock basically. So it's like flying, ice, and bug, fire. All of those will get hit pretty hard by Stealth Rocks, about 25% for each. And if the Pokemon is two of those types, then it will be hit with 50% damage from Stealth Rocks. So that can be very useful to basically remove the HP from the other opponent's side. So also when looking at Jellicent and looking at its move pool, you have Scald, which is a water type move, but it actually has a 30% chance to burn, which can be really useful. And when you pair that with a move like Hex, which doubles in power to a base 120 move, or I'm sorry, 130, which is crazy. It's a base 130, it becomes a base 130 ghost type move when the opponent is either burned, asleep, or paralyzed, so that it can be very helpful. And of course, there's also setup moves, which will basically, this Swords Dance will double your Pokemon's attack stat in one turn, which can be very nice because of course you can get like Technician boosted bullet punches, which will do a lot of damage. You have Technician boosted bug bites that will do a lot of damage, and then close combat, which already has a very high base total or base power, will do even more crazy amounts of damage. Another move that is important to understand is Trick Room. Like, Trick Room will basically reverse the turn total or the turn order, so the fastest mons will go last and the slowest mon will go first. It's a really easy concept to understand, and that's just one team that you do got to watch out for. The next thing that you should understand is EVs, IVs, and nature. So of course, with all my Pokemon, I try to give them the best EVs and I try to give them the best IVs, and as well as their nature. So Jellicent is supposed to be a very tanky, stally type mon, so you want to go defensive, and I give it these stats. Generally, most people will say you don't need all 31s in all stats, but I just like to do it that way. I like to have as much stat and as much oomph into each stat that I can. I think it's important to just get it to the max, basically. And then Scizor is a more offensive mon, so we go Adamant, which boosts your attack, and then you also go everything in the stats except for special attack, because this thing is not going to be hitting with special attack. So it's important to understand, like, for Scizor, you need to have, sorry, I can't spell. For Scizor, if you look at its base stat total, it's pretty average across the board. It's got decent defenses, but then its attack stands out, and it also gets that Technician boost. This is why abilities are important, because all moves that are base 60 power or less get a boost by 1.5 times. So Bullet Punch and Bug Bite both get boosted by a pretty good amount. And also, just a little disclaimer, natures basically boost a stat by 10%. So Jellicent with the Bold Nature, it gets minus 10 in attack, which you don't need attack, and then it gets plus 10% in its defense. So that's how it works. So then there's also things like weather, which are really useful to understand. There's obviously like a lot of people that like to use rain teams. There's of course snow teams that people can use. There's sun teams that people use, and sandstorms teams that people use. So of course in rain, Hurricane, the moves Hurricane and Thunder can never miss, which is very useful because they do have some pretty shoddy accuracy. And then, of course, if there's drought active, the power of water type moves is decreased by 50%, and that also goes for if it is raining. If the weather is rainy, then fire type moves are decreased by 50%. And then another one is that snow boosts the ice type's defense by 50%, which is it's a huge buff for ice types. So you know, something like Glaceon, this is what I covered in one of my other videos, but Glaceon gets a huge buff to its defense if it is in snow. So it takes that 110, and you know, it becomes very bulky on the physical side. And then of course you also have Sandstorm boost, which rock types gain a special defense boost by 50%, which is also very useful. Another mon that you'll see this in is actually Tyranitar. Tyranitar is already pretty crazy with its base stat total, but it takes that base 100 and it gets a boost from the Sandstorm by 50%. So this thing becomes basically not unkillable, but it's just very hard to damage on the special side. So the next thing that I would recommend that you do is actually go in on Pokemon Showdown. It's a very useful website. You can basically select what tier you would like to fight in, which I would recommend you do like Gen 5, and then you can choose like if you want OU, NU, whatever tier you want to do. And you can design a team yourself. Like, for example, I have my Jellicent, Scizor, Hydreigon, Espeon, Starmie, and Raikou. So this is just a little quick team I put together just pretty much a few minutes ago, and you know, it lays out everything very easily for you. So you can choose like the level, the gender, happiness, that doesn't really important, but like shininess, whatever. And then you basically would just type in the Pokemon you want, you type in the item that it would get, and you type in the ability, and it has it all laid out very easily for you. And then of course it gives you the moves, it gives you recommended moves, and then usually useless moves. So these are the ones that you want to avoid generally, and these are the ones that you want to slap onto your Pokemon most of the time. And then of course you also have the EV thing, so this basically just switches your EVs to whatever you want. And then you have the nature. So it's a very easy concept to understand. There's not a lot to it, it's just very simple and easy for you to use. And then all you do is you go to home, and then you click battle, and then that's all there is to it. You just wait for a battle. So I recommend using Pokemon Showdown like a lot, just to test out your teams. Now if you waste your time like breeding a Pokemon in game and it turns out to not be as good as you thought it would be, then you just wasted a ton of money. So, and lastly, I would recommend that you go out and maybe look up some videos on YouTube, and it's really that easy. You can watch some competitive Pokemon on whatever you want. If you do want specifically PokeMMO related content, I strongly recommend watching AFC Adino. He's just a very popular PokeMMO YouTuber, and he makes some really interesting teams and videos on, you know, just being on the top tier of PokeMMO in OU, and it's just really good content on his channel. And now, if you are open to other than just, you know, PokeMMO content, I also would recommend checking out False Swipe Gaming. He has some really good videos where he basically breaks down every Pokemon to the best of his ability, you know, like literally everything from like best moves, natures, EVs from each generation. So that can be very useful when building teams, and like you can learn so much from his videos. And last but not least, of course, I would recommend that you watch me for my videos. I do plan on recording and posting some videos about PvP. I do spend quite a lot of time on it, and I love to do analysis on PvP. I generally stick with randoms, but I would like to open up to, of course, more other tiers with PvP. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to leave a like, comment down below what you thought of the video, and subscribe if you aren't already. And I hope you guys have a great day.